We finally got more details on Starfield. Todd Howard appeared on the XCast today to talk about this highly anticipated game. Now, I'm just going to go over some of the big highlights that I thought were the most important, but if you want to watch the interview in its entirety, I'll have it linked down below in the description. But without wasting any more time, let's get into our first topic. Right off the bat, what I think is the most important thing that was mentioned in this interview was that there are in fact no land vehicles or creatures that we can ride, which is disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping for some sort of land speeder or something like that we would see in Star Wars. Having said that, Todd did feel the need to mention the booster pack would kind of help fill this void, which is something I'm excited about. In the direct, we saw the booster pack used a lot, especially in combat, and it looked very fluid and fun. And in any game, fun is a very important factor. So while it is disappointing that we won't be speed biking around, I'm still very excited when it comes to exploring and traversal. It will be interesting to see how this will affect the open world 30-second rule. And if this is something you're not familiar with, basically what this rule means is in an open world game, you ideally want the player to never go more than 30 seconds without seeing something that interests them or catches their attention. A great example of this is in Skyrim. Say you're walking around in a field and off in the distance you see some sort of ruined structure on a cliffside. And regardless of what you're doing, now all you can think about is what is up there. Is it loot? A special creature? A whole quest? And the cycle repeats as you're constantly engaged with all this content. Now, Todd was also asked about the biomes and their diversity on certain planets, and while he didn't offer much, he did confirm some planets will have multiple biomes, which will differ greatly, as well as some planets that will be made up of single types of biomes, and you will have to account for that. Some planets you won't be able to set foot on right away due to radiation or the temperature, and you'll have to take that into account when you're preparing your spacesuit and other provisions. Some things that Todd basically had no comment on that I found pretty interesting were when you're in your ship and you're being scanned and cleared for landing, but you have contraband on your ship. Obviously, he didn't want to spoil it because there's more than likely some sort of jailing system in the game, and while we know we can be a bounty hunter, I assume that means certain systems can put bounties on us as well. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens when we finally get our hands on this game and say you want to be a pirate and you want to, steal a bunch of contraband, and maybe there's even some sort of guild system for pirates, kind of like the Assassin's Guild or the Thieves Guild or something like that. It'll be interesting to see how that is taken into account and what they do with it in the full game. He also straight up passed on commenting on a black hole, which is very, very interesting because in my eyes, if you don't have black holes in the game, just say it. I mean, right? Like, no big deal. Sure, it'll be a bummer, but I don't think people aren't going to buy your space game because it doesn't have black holes in space. To me, it more than likely, the reason for him passing on this comment is there's probably some sort of heavy story influence regarding black holes. Maybe there's some epic set piece mission where we have to go into a black hole or we have to stop a black hole from destroying a whole star system or something. I'm not sure. I just feel like the fact that he straight up passed on it, no comment, means there's definitely going to be black holes in the game. Sometimes, in my opinion, you can say a lot more by not saying anything. Next, I want to talk about creatures, more specifically the big bad ones. In Skyrim we had dragons, in Fallout we have deathclaws, amongst others. But upon our first playthroughs, these big bads strike fear down to our core. I still remember playing Fallout 3 and accidentally wandering into the Deathclaw cave. Oh man, dude, I didn't sleep that night. It was insane. And while the dragons in Skyrim, your first playthrough, they're definitely kind of intimidating because they can be kind of difficult to take down your first time, they don't really have the same impact to me as like a Deathclaw. With that said, I think it's only natural to assume we will have something like this in Starfield, and I think Todd kind of messed up here, because his exact quote was, I mean, there's definitely a few bad, there's one really bad one, there's a few, you'll just have to play it. And you can see Todd really wanted to talk about this, but he had to stop himself. So I'd say it's all but confirmed that Starfield will have some sort or even multiple iconic creatures. What they are and where we will see them remains to be seen. And on a side note, how cool would it be to land on some desolate planet just to realize it's covered in Deathclaws? It'll be really interesting to see if they try to combine, their other worlds lore into this game. Todd also touched on companions, which seems to be functioning as usual, nothing crazy new based off what he said. We'll be able to recruit and play with multiple types of companions, or go the lone wanderer route, which is what I usually prefer. Something about open world single player games, I just really like to lone wolf it, and it immerses me more. But if you enjoy companions, then it sounds like you're gonna get the normal standard Bethesda companion routine. He also mentioned regarding companions that the 4 constellation companions are the only ones that will have romance options, which again is something I never really do in video games. It doesn't really interest me that much, but if that's something you like, you have that to look forward to, just with only the 4 constellation companions. Until we inevitably get mod support. In regards to outpost building, he actually kind of got me excited. I've never been super into the building portions of the recent Bethesda games personally, but when asked about it, Todd said it will definitely be resource heavy, so it's not like creative mode in Minecraft. You're not going to be able to just, build whatever you want for free. You're going to have to farm certain resources, and a lot of it, if you want to build this giant massive base. He also kind of mentioned that it will kind of pertain to your character tree as well. Like there will probably be certain skills that you need to upgrade to a certain point to really get the most out of the outpost building and reach its fullest potential. But the part that got me excited about this was he was talking about cargo routes between outposts, kind of implying that you could say set up 3 or 4 different outposts in a system, but then have one main outpost that's kind of like your home base, and you could have cargo routes set up to deliver materials and resources from your other outposts to your main outpost. And that to me sounds like I could build my own resource corporation, and we could probably sell these resources somewhere, so I could just have several mining planets set up delivering to my one main HQ, where then I sell off all these resources, which to me just sounds really exciting. And speaking of selling, it looks like info is going to be valuable in space, which makes sense. In the real world, that's why we have so much space exploration, is to find out what's up there, what can we use and whatnot. But he mentioned that when you're going around to new planets and you scan them, you can actually sell that info of the scanned planet somewhere in the game for space credits, which further pushes us to explore the world. And if you know me, I love exploring open world games, and I love having just another incentive for doing that. I find that very exciting. The last thing I want to touch on is ships. We all know how in-depth the customization is with ships in Starfield, but we also know you can steal other ships and add them to your own fleet. What we didn't know until today is that we have to register our stolen ships if we want to modify them in any way, which will cost credits. Not super surprising, but interesting nevertheless, especially if you're planning on just stealing a bunch of ships instead of paying for upgrades on your main ship. You're still going to end up having to spend money. That's probably going to do it for this video. There's a lot of smaller details that Todd went over in this interview, so again, if you want to watch it in full, I'll have it linked down below. But these are just the things that stood out to me and got me most excited and were new, I guess. These are the newer stuff. Most of the other stuff that he talked about was either lore related or just kind of stuff that we already kind of knew. But if you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss an upload when we get more news on Starfield and post-launch of Starfield. Comment down below on what you thought of the interview. Are there things that got you more excited? Are you disappointed about certain things? I just really want to get a discourse going with you guys. Find out what you guys are excited about. Does that relate to what I'm excited about? Or are we on completely different points of the spectrum? But yeah, that's all I got for you. I'll catch you in the next one.